Okay, so women think about sex different,
Sure.
right?
Sure.
So if a woman was thinking about the guy that could fly them to Dubai and buy them a bunch of stuff, is that lust?
Yeah, I mean, it could be a craving.
Okay.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Is
Sure.
that a lustful desire out of a person?
Yeah,
Because
again,
that's not thinking about them as an object, correct?
correct.
Okay.
Yeah, so yes,
Okay.
absolutely, women can do that.
Okay.
Yeah, or I guess it's the opposite can be true,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
But yes,
But that's the way they think about it. Sometimes more often different.
sure.
Like men don't think about it that way as much.
No, I mean, we're pretty simple and crude with it, to be honest.
Right.
But again, I guess that's something I would want to bring up. Like, but I don't want us to say that women only lust in a romanticized version or way. Like the reality is that women have just as strong sexual desire as men do, especially like in different seasons of their life, but especially in those, early, teenage puberty years and in their teenage years. Like the reality is, and I won't just label it within that context. I'm saying it's probably stronger at that point. But it continues to go on through their life as it should, because they're wired that way as well. So yeah, on the whole, maybe it is true that we men have a stronger sexual desire, but I don't want it to come across as if women don't have that, or like they get married or have some kids and it just shuts down. Like, no, like women have sexual desire as well. And
because this seems like every time anybody hears this word, they associate it with men.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah. And really they shouldn't.
Right. Okay.
Because it's just
in church.
In church. Yeah. Sure. And they really shouldn't, because, and I think that's what creates this terrible kind of cloak of shame that is placed upon women for even having sexual desire. Like they're like, I'm trying to be real careful not to divulge too much, but like I was doing counseling with someone one time and they were telling me about the fact that when they were having, like, they felt so much shame as a young woman growing up in the church environment. They felt so much shame for having sexual desire that they began cutting themselves. Like that's the degree of the shame that came upon them.
That's what the verse says to do.
Huh? What?
That's what the verse says to do.
To cut yourself?
That if you're having sexual desire, cut your eye out.
Okay. All right. Oh, Lord, Nate. Okay. You're just waiting to see the answer. All right. You're like, man.
Yeah.
But you understand what I mean. So so the fact that there's so much shame that they're actually cutting themselves in shame, that they would rather deal with that pain than the pain of shame. That to me is so, and I don't want to know, I don't think it's that deep for everyone that grows up in any kind of church environment. I'm not saying that. All I'm saying is that we have to normalize it again. Like, in other words, we have to say men, like young men and men, have sexual desire. Young ladies, women have sexual desire. Like,
okay, but if we
we need to say that.
If we normalize that, then where does that meet sin?
Yeah. And so I guess what I'm saying is we have to, I guess, acknowledge it.
Okay.
Acknowledge it.
We have to acknowledge that everyone's sinning.
Sure.
Okay.
I mean, I think if we're being honest about it, we're all struggling with the temptation to lust.
Okay.
Men and women both.
I'm just going to have a bunch of left-eyed people.
Well, I think though that it's if we acknowledge it, right? Mm-hmm. So if we say there is sexual desire that's happening in both, young men, young ladies, women, that's happening. Now we've we've dealt with the elephant in the room. It's there. Now, how do we go about as a Christian community helping one another through this? Right? Because I can't sit there and look at my own kids in the face and go, you know what? Sexual desire is there. It's normal, but just don't lust. But that's not helping them. I think we have to say, here's now how we're going to navigate these waters.
Wait, so you're separating sexual desire from lust?
Yes.
Okay,
so let me put it this way. We all have a desire to have sex.
Yeah.
Okay? I think that desire to have sex can become lust once we've kind of crossed that line of now we're actually playing out sexual fantasies in our own mind or in our own heart, right? Where we cross that line of going, like, it for every one of us to go, yeah, there's sexual I am wired, like God designed me and wired me to have sexual desire. Okay? Sin has jacked that up.
Right.
And sin has jacked up that desire. To where it now becomes this distorted thing that it was supposed to be, this broken thing. And now, instead of being able to go, yep, I have a desire to have sex.
So Adam and Eve, before they sinned, only had sexual desire for each other.
Yes.
And never thought about it in any other context ever.
Correct.
Okay.
I think, and then it all got broken and distorted. And now that desire, like, really allows almost like sin to take hold of it. And that desire becomes sin.
And that's why they could be naked.
Yeah.
Because neither of them were ever thinking about anything else.
Right. And it says they were naked and unashamed.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. The end of Genesis 2. And they were naked and unashamed.
Okay.
And
that makes sense.
Yeah. And then when the sin happens, you mentioned it earlier. First thing they do, they cover themselves up. Shame hits.
Right.
And it's broken ever since. And I think that we need to help. It's not just for young people, like just the people in the church in general, right? Like, hey, this thing is there. What now do we do with it? Because we've never wanted to talk about it.
Right.
We've never wanted to address it. And I know that when I bring it up, whether on Sunday mornings or on Wednesday nights, there are people who are uncomfortable when I bring it up. Because they've always been told that church and sex are like they have to be separated. They don't belong together, right? We don't talk about sex in church.
Or have sex in church.
Well, you probably shouldn't have sex in church. But
that's true.
Yeah, but we're not going to talk about sex in church. Sex is not holy, not good. Therefore, we're not going to talk about it. And I think what we have to do is redeem that sex really is holy and is good in the context of marriage. And then backing that up one more step, and we all have desire. Now that desire to have sex can become lustful thoughts. All right. Now, what do we do as a community to help one another with that? And I think that's kind of that next, I don't know if you want to frame it that way, but like that next step, all right, we're going to acknowledge it. And now we're going to talk about what do we do with it? Right. And how do we get down to the core? Like, if it's related to our brokenness and sin, how do we
then we should be able to
talk about it. And how do we then become healthy and whole in that area?
Right.
Because if it's, again, related to our brokenness, then part of our being transformed into the likeness of Christ should be a healing in that area. And so, therefore, I just think that this needs to be a much bigger, broader conversation than what the church has usually been willing to have. And this isn't just an American church issue, by the way. Like, this is like the nuances may be different in different countries, but this is just a church issue globally. And we have really got to begin to speak to it in a more faithful manner.